Manon Fiorot remains perfect. She beats Erin Blanchfield in the battle of who is the next title contender in the women's flyweight division. She adds Blanchfield to this resume that, as I sit here and look at it, may just be one of the best resumes in women's mixed martial arts right now. In just 7 UFC fights, this is what Manon Fiorot has already accomplished. She is the only person to have knocked out Tabitha Ricci, who's the current 11th ranked strawweight in the world. She has beaten Mayra Bueno Silva, former Bantamweight Championship title challenger. She has beaten Jennifer Maia, former Flyweight title challenger. She has beaten Caitlin Sermonara, formerly known as Caitlin Chukagian, former Flyweight title challenger. She has beaten Rose Namajunas, former two-time strawweight champion and current number 7 ranked flyweight in the world. And now she has beaten Erin Blanchfield, who was 6-0 in the UFC. These two came together with the winner more than likely being the next number 1 contender for the winner of the Alexa Grasso versus Valentina Shevchenko trilogy that is supposed to happen later on this year. That is an unbelievable resume. 7 fights in the UFC, 6 notable names like that in just over 3 years. From pillar to post, round 1 to round 5, 25 straight minutes, this was a shutout from Manon Fiorot. Say what you want about if you didn't think it was that exciting or whatever. Manon Fiorot proved to me that she is as technical a striker as there is in women's mixed martial arts right now, especially in the UFC. She never even had to really worry outside of maybe one head kick in the 5th round that Erin Blanchfield landed. Other than that, she controlled this fight. She fought at her range, and she counter-struck her way to a very clean, polished victory. She made Erin Blanchfield look lost in there at times. She really did. Not only was the grappling and wrestling that Erin Blanchfield is known for a non-factor in this fight, there was just no bit of success at all, really, for the side of the 24-year-old Blanchfield. And now I'm not coming on here today to rain on Erin Blanchfield's career and her parade. Like I just said, she's 24 years old. She has beaten former champions and title challengers in her own right building up to this fight. That is why I said on Friday that this was the biggest non-title fight in this division's history. And while it wasn't the best fight in women's flyweight history in the aftermath, it was still a very important matchup, and you cannot deny that. That is the simple fact. And now Manon Fiorot, in my opinion, is the clear-cut number 1 contender. She should not have to fight anyone else before she fights for a title. And my goodness, who is there for her to even fight at this point outside of maybe like a Macy Barber? But I have already said Macy and Rose need to go at it next in a 5-round main event. Manon, unbelievable shutout performance. The only thing she didn't do was get a finish, right? I mean, but outside of that, how do you really critique this performance? It was just so clean, technical, precise. She landed the much more damaging shots. It looked like she didn't even really get hit after this fight, and Erin's face was all beat up. The physicality of Manon, she could easily be a bantamweight 135-pounder. Undoubtedly, she looked much bigger than Erin Blanchfield. She was clearly much stronger than Erin Blanchfield in those few grappling exchanges, in the clinch up against the fence. She got the upper hand in every aspect of this fight. This was a coming out party for her in terms of an ESPN like network television fight night main event that she got to throw her name out there representing French mixed martial arts out of Paris. Manon Fiorot, my hat is off to her. Erin Blanchfield, don't be down on yourself. At 24 years old, still a very bright future ahead, and more than likely will still challenge for a title one day, but just not now. The time belongs to the 34-year-old karate ace, and really, after this fight, just all around beautifully skilled mixed martial artist. And this wasn't even her best performance if we're talking the all-around game, because we've seen her out-grapple the likes of Jennifer Maia, who is known for her grappling, who won a round against Valentina Shevchenko because of her grappling, and Manon out-grappled her, the jiu-jitsu and grappling ace. So Manon Fiorot is a legit threat, and I think can easily hold the flyweight title. I definitely think that she can beat the winner of Grasso versus Valentina Shevchenko. Either one of them, I think Manon on a night like this when she beats Erin Blanchfield can beat both of them and become a UFC flyweight world champion. And so what's next? Well, it's that simple. She needs to fight the winner of that fight. We just have to wait and see when it will be. Again, I feel like I've said this a lot the past 2 weeks because we've had back-to-back women's flyweight main events, but Grasso and Shevchenko are slated to coach The Ultimate Fighter. They have already begun recording. It will air in June. I would imagine that around the time that show ends, they will begin prepping for what is to be a UFC 306 title fight at the Sphere, UFC 306, Las Vegas, Nevada, Mexican Independence Day, the trilogy, Grasso representing Mexico versus the former champion Valentina Shevchenko. I know Valentina doesn't want to do that. All of the signs are pointing toward that being where they finish their trilogy and finish their story. And so Manon, get ready to sit front row at that very cool Sphere for what is supposed to be a monumental card, because you've got next. And I do just quickly want to matchmake for the loser here of the main event, Erin Blanchfield. She was 6-0, had a great resume to her own right, as I've already said, going into this fight. And I think, being that we're on similar timelines here, just a few weeks apart, her losing this fight should match her up with Caitlin Sermonara, who just lost to Macy Barber. Caitlin is a former title challenger. Manon has beaten her. Macy has just beaten her. I think it's two women that are on similar schedules. Caitlin just fought at UFC 299 a few weeks ago, and now Erin is here, just having fought on March 30th. I think you line them up sometime in the summer. It would be what will presumably be number 3 come Tuesday morning, Erin Blanchfield versus number 6, Caitlin Sermonara. Still a very, very important fight for this division. And now I'll just go through the rest of the card. We'll start in the main event, the 170-pound division. Joaquin Buckley just got the biggest win of his career. Now, it may not have been the biggest finish of his career, because he's going to have a hard time ever passing up what he did to Impa Kasanganay back in the pandemic in 2020. But this is up there on the list for sure. He knocks out Vicente Luque 3 minutes and 17 seconds into the second round. Vicente, very bad decision. First off, Joaquin did very well in the first round, landed the bigger shots, had Vicente on the back foot, wasn't allowing Vicente to pressure like he's known for in a lot of his past fights when he gets big finishes. So Buckley looked great. And I said on Friday, he's gotten so much better fight by fight. He's so much more than just someone who can get these crazy knockouts. He is a well-rounded, fully skilled mixed martial artist, and I think he showcased that here. But in that second round, Vicente made a very poor choice by pulling guard, and then from there, didn't do anything with it. Didn't look to get up, didn't look to find a submission, and Buckley took full advantage of it and wrecked him with ground and pound until the ref had no choice but to step in and stop this fight. So Buckley has now won 3 fights in a row, none bigger than the number 11 ranked 170-pound fighter in the world, Vicente Luque. Come Tuesday morning, Buckley will find himself in the top 15, approaching the top 10 at 170 pounds. And I think there's a lot of really good matchups that you could do for Buckley next. Sean Brady was in attendance at this event. I think that would be a very fun fight. Heck, maybe even you do him and Michael Venom Page, who just debuted and got a win over Kevin Holland. Not to mention they're on similar timelines, just like I talked about in the main event. Michael Page just fought a few weeks ago. Buckley fights here. He did this on short notice, by the way, Buckley coming in and gets this big win. I'm all game and all ears for any top 10 opponent, to be quite frank. Any ranked opponent, I should say, for Joaquin Buckley. It's clear that he's getting better and better and has a chance to climb all the way to title contender status. And for all I know, 1 or 2 years down the line, Joaquin Buckley could even have a belt wrapped around his waist. Eye pokes are the story of the next 2 fights that we will talk about here. Chris Weidman gets a technical decision victory over Bruno Silva. There was probably at least 5 or 6 eye pokes across the board in this fight. A majority of those on the side of Chris poking Bruno Silva, but no points were deducted. And an eye poke looked to lead to the finish here. Chris Weidman actually got a TKO originally over Bruno Silva late or about halfway, excuse me, into that third round, finished him with ground and pound strikes. After dropping him, it looked like Bruno Silva got poked in the eye and dropped himself down. So Chris Weidman gets the victory regardless. Maybe if a point had been deducted, it would have been a little bit more confusing. But all of that aside, it was still pretty cool in that moment to see Chris Weidman with the story that he's had of the injury and 39 years old, losing a lot of his fights. He's in his home area. He's the New Yorker. They fought in New Jersey. So seeing him get that victory and the crowd go nuts for him was a great moment, even though he brutally knocked out and then broke my favorite fighter of all time's leg, Anderson Silva. But I digress. It didn't come perfect. There's a lot of ugliness in the aftermath even. But Chris was humble in the victory, was even given advice to Bruno Silva like, man, look, if you're going to get poked in the eye, you can't drop down in the fight like that because it looks like you got knocked down by a strike. You need to pull away and get the ref like Bruno had done a couple other times in the fight. Look, points probably should have been deducted for both guys, but definitely for Chris Weidman. But that didn't happen. A technical decision is the decision. And that's pretty much all I got to talk about. But the fight after that also may have been a result of an eye poke. Nursulton Ruziboev has 10 straight first round finishes. And this is in the middleweight division as well, much like that Weidman and Silva fight. He knocks out Sedriques Dumas 3 minutes and 18 seconds into the first round. Looked like he may have grazed the eye of Dumas en route to the finishing sequence here as well. This one not as blatant. It looked like it was a partial eye poke, partial punch. Those are kind of always hard to judge. But this guy is pure entertainment from start to finish when he's in there. So you got to look out for Ruziboev because he's kill or be killed. Kyle Nelson finished Bill Algeo 4 minutes into the first round and has extended his win streak to 3. He is by far on the best stretch of his career and definitely UFC career. This was none bigger, right, win-wise, than that of Bill Algeo, who had won 2 straight fights in his own right. This in the featherweight division. Kyle Nelson just had a baby born 10 days ago. His wife and baby were there with him in support in Atlantic City, and he gets a huge win, the fella from Canada. Now, for what it's worth, the stoppage, I do believe, came a little bit early from Gary Copeland. I thought Bill Algeo was still relatively well at defending himself. He was throwing shots back at Kyle Nelson. I get it, though. Bill was taking a lot of damage, looked very wobbly. I just think he was doing enough to allow more time to recover or just see it through to Kyle Nelson getting the big finish. That's not what we got. So it's a little bit tainted for Kyle Nelson, but you can't take away from the performance that he had. Nate the Train Landwehr, probably the most entertaining featherweight in the division. Well, that's arguable because this division's pretty insane right now. Let's just say he's the most entertaining non-ranked featherweight in the division. That I don't think can be argued. Him and Jamall Emmers went toe-to-toe for 4 minutes and 43 seconds. Emmers nearly finishes Nate Landwehr early on, cut him up real bad with an elbow across his forehead. Landwehr saw blood, and that's when he decided to show up and show out. He knocks out Jamall Emmers in that first round, a crazy first round comeback. He led it up with nasty uppercuts, and that is what got him the finish. Nate the Train bounces back from his top 15 debut fight when he did lose to Dan Ige. He gets this win, and he's right back on track. Julio Arce knocked out Herbert Burns 2 minutes into the second round. Dennis Buzukja got his first UFC victory by knocking out Connor Matthews 22 seconds into the third round. He was overcome with emotion. You could tell how much that win meant to him and that finish, the style in which he did it. And Ibo Aslan won his UFC debut by knocking out Anton Turkalj 1 minute and 32 seconds into the third round. We knew that fight was going to be violent. Quite frankly, it went a lot longer than I expected it to, but Ibo got the debut victory. So let me know in the comments below your thoughts on UFC Atlantic City. Give me your predictions for what is going to happen with the women's flyweight division. A lot of moving pieces right now. We've had these 2 huge fights back-to-back weeks with Rose Namajunas getting a big victory. Maycee Barber got a huge win at UFC 299. Manon Fiorot and Erin Blanchfield fight here. Manon gets the victory. Give me your kind of layout of the division as we await the title fight between Grasso and Shevchenko 3. And give me your thoughts on the rest of the card as well. If you enjoyed this recap, please be sure to drop a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you are new so you never miss my recaps of the most meaningful results from every MMA card every single weekend. I also break down the fights each week. X's and O's, sure, but especially hitting on the storylines and what is at stake going into all of these fights and how we got to where we are. And I give my thoughts and opinions on the biggest breaking news and MMA fight announcements as well. Join the community on social media at the BAJ MMA. Subscribe to the channel not only on YouTube but on your favorite audio listening platforms such as Spotify and Apple Podcasts and many, many more as it helps the show grow. Any and all support is greatly appreciated. Have a great week, and I'll see you in the next video.